Welcome back to the Speedfire Fab YouTube channel. Today in the shop we're going to be finally putting the new 6.2 LSA engine that we have lightly rebuilt back into my wife's 1990 old body style GMC. It should have been a pretty straightforward, smooth install, but that's not the Speedfire Fab way, so follow along for all the complications, all the struggles, and some good laughs along the way. Alright, I think the transmission dropped down a little bit when I pulled it all out, so I gotta get a jack up under there and try to raise it up. All right, so it's not in there. I'm frustrated. Before I get more pissed off, start tearing things up, I'm going to take a break. Like, it's almost in the motor mount holes. This side's not really that great, but the dowel pin is kind of stuck in the bell housing and needs to go up a little bit. And on this side, it's way too low. So it needs to go in this hole up top where the light is, but it's down there. It's in a bolt hole, or trying to go in a bolt hole. So like, it's very difficult because the transmission's kind of in a fixed location, and then your motor mounts, you have to kind of drop the ears around them. So the transmission wants the engine to go kind of in at an angle and back, but the motor mounts can only go up and down, so it gets a little tricky. But take a little break, cool off, we'll come back, try it again, and it will probably all work out because that's usually how it goes. All right, well, I decided to fight with it off camera for a little while, and I finally got it. It wasn't too terribly bad. It's just, again, it's weird how it has to go kind of slide down and back to get in the transmission, but you can't. It's got to be straight down on the motor mounts. I got this side in. I got the bolt started. The other side's still slightly out. I need to put a bolt in there, but it's in the dowel pin. Both the motor mount bolts are in. I'm gonna raise it up, get the bottom bell housing bolts in there. We got to make sure we got the right torque converter spacing. Hopefully we don't have to take it back out in order to fix that. So that's what we're gonna do next. We're gonna raise it up and get the bottom taken care of. All right, we got to get a bolt in the bottom right there. All right, you need to be 100% confident that you have nothing in the way, that you're on your dowel pins, and that your bell housing is not in a bind, because if it is in a bind and you go to torque the bolts down thinking you're going to pull it up, you can break your bell housing. I've done it before. You really want to just get it all the way seated. In a normal perfect world, which happens most of the time in this situation, that when you kind of shove it all together, that it should mate up, and then you just put your bolts in, and you might pull it like an 1/8 of an inch. It's not advisable to pull it this far. My only guess here is that the transmission mount might be shifted just a hair too far back. Maybe I kind of forced the mount in there when I put it in, and that's causing it to be a little out of whack. All right, I think we might be too far away on our torque converter. So the converter is pushed all the way back. Our bell housing is not torqued down, but it's got bolts in it, and they're somewhat tight. There's one spots right here. Oh, I got one top. I know it's pretty well seated with this motor. That is like absolute max. So ideally, if you put this in and your converter is all the way into the pump of the transmission and it's touching this and there's zero gap, that's bad. What that means is you've got too much, I'm not even sure what to call it. It's not free play, I guess it's kind of preload. Like if there's no gap here and all this is bolted up, then you're probably most likely forcing your converter into your transmission, which if you don't know much about automatics or you don't know anything, the outside of this, there's a little output shaft coming out of this converter that splines into the input shaft, but also kind of splines into the fluid pump for the transmission. And that pump is bolted into the front cover here. That pump is what creates your fluid pressure, which closes your valves, makes it shift. Like without that pump, your transmission is useless. So you don't want your converter being forced into the pump by the pressure plate with not enough clearance, because it'll burn the converter up. You want between an 1/8 and 3/16 of an inch. So the best way is take a drill bit. That's 3/16, which has come out of the 3/16 hole, but I need to verify that it is actually. All right, it is a 3/16 bit. So if you put it in there, it should just barely fit, like no gap, and it is, I don't know, there's a fraction of a gap. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to put your bolts in here and you're going to pull this converter up against that flywheel, which is going to pull it off the shaft and out of the pump just slightly. You don't want to pull it more than 3/16 of an inch, because anything past that and you don't have good connection with the fluid pump and the transmission, and you will probably burn it up, or your collar on your collar shaft of this converter is not going to be protruding into the pump enough, and it's going to start shaking and moving, and it's going to break the end of the pump off, which then is going to destroy all kinds of things, and we don't want that. But I might see there might be a new problem here. I don't know if there's enough room. We're going to pull this up against there. But our converter is not engaged into the crankshaft. I probably can't see because this light is crazy bright. So you have your collar. You got the collar of your crankshaft here. And your converter is supposed to, it's got a little kind of nipple on it that's supposed to sit in there. So this kind of supports, your crank supports kind of your main load of your converter, and then the bolts kind of transfer the energy, if you will. So I don't think that is right, because you'll notice how long that one is. Now that torque converter is a little dished, so that's going to naturally make that thing a little bit longer. I don't think this one's long enough, so I'm going to have to look into that, do a little research real quick and see if that is right, because I don't think it is. And I think we might need a adapter ring. I know the early 6.0 liter blocks, like 99 and 2000, I believe, they had a shorter crank snout right there, and you had to run a spacer to match up with the converter. I'm wondering if I've got to do that here. If that's the case, that's not going to be very fun. I'll probably just I'll probably pull the drive shaft 4 bolts on the cross member and slide the transmission back rather than taking the motor out. But let me look into that real quick and double check myself, and I'll let you guys know, and we'll get back at it. Alright, so I do need a spacer, and the spacer is on the old engine behind the flywheel, or the flex plate. Sorry, I'm used to doing standard clutch type stuff. Which means that would have been really, really, really easy to do when the engine was out. And yet we've already put it back in. So rather than fighting that thing, I'm going to continue to put, well, I was going to say I'm going to continue to put the engine stuff together, and then I'll come back and do this, but the truck's already up in the air. I might as well just slide the transmission back, pop that flex plate off, pop this one off, put the spacer in, and put it all back together. So I guess we're going to do that. Yay. That's what I get for not paying all the attentions. transmission out.
Oh, yeah. Now, let's see, how bad is yours? Is it going to take a lot of time?
Probably.
Is it probably?
It's been a little while, not gonna lie.
God, actually, I might just have to cut it today, and then probably go tomorrow when I get off and weed eat. Or are you gonna be working tomorrow?
I'll be here.
Yeah, I still gotta go to Venus today.
Okay.
So I try to get the whole thing mowed, and then, or however much I can get weed eated until about 8 o'clock.
All right, that's fine.
And then if there's anything left, I'll have to try to get it done tomorrow after work.
Okay.
Well, I'll be over there in a little bit.
All right. Bye.
Does your turn work?
Yeah, I got those from air in the tire.
Alright. I'll be over there in a little bit.
All right. Bye. Well, I guess it's gonna fight me all the way. I got 2 out of the 6 bolts out. The heads are so shallow that they're all stripped because the socket, I won't actually grab them. The socket just like basically tries to like unscrew off of there. Useless. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. Might have to cut them. Might have to weld a nut. We'll see. Well, I was struggle busting trying to get the flange off the old engine. So I said, heck with it, I'm going to Summit. I'm gonna buy one. So I get in the truck, drive 45 minutes, get over there with my part number in hand, and I'm about to check out with it, and I realize, man, I'm an idiot. I spent a couple hours trying to get the old flange off. That's a 6-bolt for a 6-bolt crank. And I'm up here at Summit trying to buy the very same thing when I have an 8-bolt crank. Turns out Summit doesn't have the 8-bolt flange unless you want to buy the AC Delco one, which they didn't have in stock, and it was $400. $400 for this. So I got online and I ordered it along with some longer bolts. Thought I was buying some ARP bolts. They're knockoff ARP, but it's all right. They got the 12-point head. They'll be better than that other crap that was on the 6-liter. So now we got to put it together. And this flange is right about 3/8 of an inch thick. I had right at 3/16 of an inch to my torque converter, which is the max we're allowed. So I don't want to put this spacer on the crank and then space out the flex plate. So what I'm going to do, which is allowed, it's designed to do this. We're going to put the flex plate on, triple check that engine side is facing the engine, and then we're going to put our spacer, and we're basically just going to use the spacer to adapt over to the front little nipple on the torque converter, because that is kind of where this problem all started. Not enough engagement there. So we're gonna, I guess I'm gonna probably put 3 bolts in it and test fit it. Logical route before I go Loctiting and torquing everything down. Oh nice, the socket doesn't really fit. Okay. Seems pretty solid. Now then, we got to put the transmission back up there. We got to fight the light so that we can see. All while I blind myself with it. Can't see much, but the only downside is if it does all fit perfectly, I still got to pull the transmission back off and tighten everything up properly. Okay, this side's in. I don't think the driver's side's in. And of course the light is about to die. Story of my life. Just enough wiggle room. It's engaged. There goes the light. Can't find my 3/16 drill bit. Alright, well, the gap looks 3/16-ish. I mean, there's no real way to change that. If we flip it around, I'm going to call that a win. Another battery for the light. I'm going to back this out. Put her down a little. Put the rest of the bolts and torque everything. Alright, the light's got another charge. Another battery, guaranteed to be good for probably at least 10 minutes. The spec is blue Loctite and 85 foot-pounds. Don't have blue. Red's my favorite color, so we're going with red. We're gonna put a little bit of ARP grease on the bottom of the bolt heads. A little extra lube as we tighten. Hopefully I can do this without getting this stuff all over me. And I hope y'all can see, because that light is terrible in my eyes. And if you're not familiar with Loctite, as the name implies, it locks everything tight. Keeps the bolts from working their way out. Kind of like a glue, if you will. Red is the strongest there is. Red is the best. It also means that when you want to take it out or off, it's going to require a lot more force, sometimes heat. But the old trusty Milwaukee 3/4 inch Ugga Dugga machine will take it off pretty much every time. Except for the times that it won't. And then you need heat. But that doesn't happen very often. Alright, I'm going to go get a 1912.3H drive. Maybe it will fit in there a little bit tighter. If only I can find the 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter. There it is on the floor, right where it belongs. You don't need a big fancy toolbox when you have the floor and the table and everything else that's a toolbox. The 4-post lift, the arms of the 2-post lift, fenders of your project vehicles. Because why do you need to know where everything is? Keep following along for more money-saving tech tips. You're welcome. Okay, back to the task at hand. It's definitely on 20. We need to go to 85. Now we gotta lock the flex plate. I don't remember how I did that before. They make a tool for this. Of course, I don't have the tool. Why buy the tool when you can use a bolt? I think that's a win. Now we just got to push this thing back in place. Make sure our wiring harness doesn't get pinched in between there. Don't forget to take out the bell housing bolt that's locking your flex plate. That would be bad. Remember, double check the wiring harness. That's a terrible day when you start torquing your bolts down and pinch that sucker. Again, you'll always hear me say I may not know how to do it, but I know how not to do it. Because I've done been there, got the trophy. I don't want another one. Anyway. I might have to go watch the video back where I put this flex plate on, because pretty sure I didn't put it on backwards, but I don't have hardly any gap right now on the converter. Oh, what did I tell you? Don't pinch your wires. Remember, double check the wiring harness. And there I am pinching one. Dang it. That means you get to take it all back off. Dang it, I'm gonna have to splice that back together. As I done been there, got the trophy. I don't want another one. Can't be mad at nobody but myself. It's like 2 wires. Two little stragglers hanging down there. Right in the way of everything. The only reason I knew that is when I started tightening it down, I could hear the wire loom crunching. All right. We got that done. Now I want to get this jack out of my way because it is annoying. So I'm going to move back here and put the cross member back in. I'm going to catch the camera on everything there is to catch because why not? All right, I've had enough of the jack, kicking it to the curb. We're gonna throw the drive shaft back in real quick. I was gonna leave this out, but it's the next thing I gotta do after I get all this back together. Before we go put it on a dyno, I gotta rebuild the rear end because you can see it's puking out. She's got some play in her. It's in park and that won't let me turn it. But I want to put it back in for now. I'm probably going to move it off of this lift and onto the 2-post to do the rear end just because it's easier to get tires off. Not to mention, I want to just kind of get everything put back together under here and not have to lift it back up except to hook the exhaust up. When I do the rear end, we're going to be doing rear brakes. I got a wheel master cylinder leaking. Master cylinder. Wheel. Oh, what do you call it? Wheel cylinder, brake cylinder. All right, back up front. Let's see, you gotta hook up the transmission backup. The wires and the shifter. Put it back in park. All right. Next step is torque converter bolts. So here's what we're doing. We got our ARP converter bolts. First one's the easiest. Sometimes helps kind of pry on your converter. Get it up a little bit to get your bolts started. So you want to hand tighten. You want to hand tighten them all, but we're going to hand tighten the first one there. And then we're going to spin her over. Going to make a little noise. You're going to spin it just enough to get to your next one. Now, I have learned something else the hard way. I don't think it's such a big problem on these transmissions, but you definitely want to make sure your converter is pushed up as far as you can, pulled up as far as you can, and then snug your bolts, because I got in a situation one time. I can't remember what that was on. I think it was on a Ford or something. Anyways, I didn't have the converter pressed up against the flex plate. All the bolts, just a couple threads. I get to the first bolt, I get back around to the first bolt that I put in, tighten it down, I torque it down. It sucks up the converter like ½ an inch. Well, now all the other 4, 5, or 6, how many there were, bolts that are around the perimeter, all of a sudden they got longer because they're threaded in there, and then the converter sucks up and the bolts push this way, and they locked themselves against the top of the block, and I couldn't turn the engine over. Quite an ordeal that I do not ever want to do again, because I pretty much bound it up and there was no going forward or back. You also want to make sure they're all in there because there's wiggle room. There it is. If you try to put 1 or 2 and tighten them, then you're probably not going to get your last one in. Been there, tried that too. Like I said, I've got quite a few trophies of learning things the hard way. Not really something you want to be bragging about. Definitely not ideal. All right, we should probably torque these. ARP LS converter bolt torque. Good old Googles. 45 foot-pounds. Seems logical. That is, if I have enough room to do that. Now I gotta crawl up top, snake the wiring harness down so we can plug it into the crank sensor. Oh, nice. Fuel pressure wire is the one that I cut. It's not really ideal, but at least it's easy to get to. Not a 15, but a half 13. Okay, knock sensor in, crank in. Test y'all. The test is, what is wrong with this picture? If you guessed that that bolt is upside down, you would be right. If you also guessed that that's in the wrong spot, you would also be right. Good news is that was engineered as a quick fix. Now that I think about that, I could have taken that out the entire time and it wouldn't have been in my way. Oh well. Nothing we can do about it now. Thing left, which what I've been dreading, is the crossover tube in. I don't know why I'm dreading it. I'm the one that designed it. To be honest, I didn't design it that great. All right, I'm betting we got 3 minutes till the light dies. I don't have another one charged. Also, I'm not real sure how I'm going to do this. Basically one-handed. Put these gaskets in here. That's not gonna work. know. All right, I guess that kind of works. Stretch the gasket inside the clamp. Here lies problem number 2, though. I don't know where the other clamp is. I'm gonna have to put both of them on there. There goes the light. That was probably about 3 minutes. 3 minutes my time, not 3 minutes y'all's time. Literally every clamp accounted for except for that one. And I had this all fit up. Like 2 days ago. Clamp was on one side of the truck, nut was on the other side of the truck. Makes perfect sense. Okay, battery number 3. The smallest one, which means it's gonna be dead in 10 minutes too. What y'all think? Y'all love it? I hate it. Let's roll with it. Go ahead and put the oil filter on while I'm thinking about it before I fill it full of oil and try to start it. Make one heck of a mess. All right. I think I'm done for the day. It's like, oh, watch battery's dead too. You'll hang around here long enough, you'll know that whatever takes a battery that I touch, guaranteed to die. It's almost 8 o'clock. Probably gonna clean up a little bit and call it a day. Well, I think that's gonna be it for today. I don't know how much footage I got here, but it might even be probably gonna be the end of this episode. Which means maybe we can do one more. We can get it all put back together and fired back up. Get it ready for the dyno. Still got to figure that out. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out. And I will see y'all next time.